You owe back taxes to the IRS, and you've kind of been hiding under the radar. Then one day you hear a at your front door. It's the IRS. A revenue officer has come to investigate you for those unpaid taxes and unfiled returns. He wants to come on in and do a walkthrough. But what does that mean? What do you do now? Do you even have to let him in? That's the topic of today's video on the other side of the break.
1-877 Levy-King, L-E-V-Y Levy-King, 1-877 Levy-King, LEVY-KING.com.
What's up, guys? Corey Hankerson here from Legacy Tax, and they call me the Levy King because I've helped thousands of clients with unfiled returns, back taxes, tax liens, and that's right, IRS levies. If the IRS took your check, the Levy King will get it back. 1-877 Levy-King, LEVY-KING.com. I'm also the author of End the Tax Nightmare, Insider Secrets to Beat the IRS and Reduce Your Tax Debt. Inside the book, I'll show you how to stop IRS liens, levies, and garnishments without paying the tax in full. How to set up the payment plan you want and not the one that they want, and how to potentially settle your debt for less than you actually owe. My book has been a top seller on Amazon for years. You can buy it right now for $19.99, but I want to give you a copy of the book absolutely free. Just go over to my website, www.endthetaxnightmare.com, enter your name and your email, and I'll send you a copy right away. No charge, not even for shipping, totally free. Now, before we go any further with today's video, I want you to take a moment to subscribe to my channel and smash that like button so you'll be notified each and every time we drop a new video. All right, guys, let's dive into today's content. Okay, so during the height of the COVID-19 pandemic, IRS revenue officers worked from home. They did a lot of their work from home. You know, they worked remotely like many of us did. Now, however, IRS revenue officers are coming back into the field. They're resuming their surprise visits to your home or your business. Essentially, they're back in full force and they're out there collecting taxes again in the field, just like they traditionally had been. One of their tactics that they use is called the walkthrough. What a walkthrough is when a revenue officer shows up unannounced at your home or your business and they ask you to let them in, which most people do, and they come in your home and they start walking around looking to see what all you've got. They want to see what type of electronics or computers, or see if there's anything valuable in the home that they could potentially seize if they needed to. They also want to ask you a bunch of questions to try to figure out, you know, how much you have and what they can get from you to satisfy the outstanding tax liability. Now, I've heard that revenue officers purposefully select inconvenient times to make these visits to your home or business. They show up without calling first, and they often arrive at odd hours like early mornings or late evenings or right around major holidays. This was the case for a future client of ours who hadn't filed their taxes in a few years. It was 2 days before Christmas when an IRS revenue officer came to his home. The RO showed up unannounced on a Friday evening just as the family was about to have dinner. My client was intimidated by the RO, but they reluctantly let them into their home. Now, I wish that I had been there because I would have reminded my future client that you are not required to let an IRS revenue officer into your home. I might have advised the client to politely and respectfully but firmly tell them that, hey, now is not a good time. I would have them tell the revenue officer that they intend to hire a representative, a CPA, an enrolled agent, a tax attorney to communicate with the IRS on their behalf. Finally, I would have them ask the revenue officer for their business card or contact information so that their representative could get back to the RO at a later point in time. But I wasn't there to intervene. So once the revenue officer was inside the home, the floodgates were open. The RO began to walk around the house, taking a mental note of all the belongings that he could see. He also began peppering the client with rapid fire questions about where the client banks and how much they have in the various accounts. This is a problem because the RO has done this type of walkthrough before, whereas you haven't. He's prepared the questions in advance, but you haven't seen them. And he has a very good idea of what the answers ought to be. The client was answering these questions off the top of his head because he was not prepared for the RO to drop by. The worst part of it was when the RO began writing down the answers that the client provided. Now, again, if I had been there, I would have advised the client not to guess or take it off the top of his head in terms of his income, expenses, assets, or liabilities, because the revenue officer is copying down the answers onto an IRS Form 433A. This form is what he intends to use to determine how much the government can extract from you. Instead, this is something that you want to take your time with and provide the answers only after consulting with your pay stubs and your other monthly bill statements. The best scenario is to hire a professional to complete these documents for you instead of you trying to do them yourself and guessing as you walk around. You're all nervous, you're in a panic, and you're walking around with this IRS employee flashing a badge in your home. Now, but again, I wasn't there to intervene. So the RO continued to put the press on my future client. After the revenue officer had gotten all of the information they wanted, they requested copies of my future client's bank statements, pay stubs, and other financial documents. He gave the client just 14 days to file the tax returns for the last 4 years. He also told the future client that if he didn't file the returns, the IRS was going to seize his bank accounts and garnish his paychecks. By this time, the future client began to get a little fed up. He used some inappropriate language and maybe hurled an insult or two towards the revenue officer. If I had been there, I would have advised him that this is an excellent way to make a bad situation much, much worse. The RO left and the client conveniently forgot about the 14-day deadline. If the visit had gone a little better, maybe the RO would have given the client, given the future client that is, a little bit more time or loosened the requirements. But that didn't happen. On day 15, the revenue officer froze the client's bank accounts and slapped a wage levy on his paycheck. The client tried unsuccessfully to resolve the situation by himself by negotiating with the IRS. He called me 2 weeks later, and we were able to get the bank levy released, to remove the wage levy, and settle the tax debt in our client's favor. Don't be like this guy. If a revenue officer shows up at your door, you should never be rude or disrespectful, right? Don't take it like the revenue officer is personally out to get you or that they somehow, take enjoyment or pleasure in making your life a little bit more difficult. It's usually not the case. The only reason they're actually there in the first place is because you have ignored all of the letters and phone calls that their attempts to reach you in the past, right? So that's the only reason that they're there. So now they have to pay you a visit to just get your attention, to make you sort of take this a little bit more seriously. Now, you don't want to be rude, but you also don't want to give up too much. You're not required to let them into your home. You're not required to answer any questions, and it's probably a good idea to let them know that you want to hire a professional to represent you and resolve your tax problems. Speaking of tax problems, if you owe back taxes to the IRS or the state, I want you to know that there are special programs in place to help you get a fresh start and get out from under this tax debt. But how do you know if you qualify? You see, no two cases are exactly alike. So how do you know exactly how much you can settle for? Well, I've created a free tool to help you get qualified for a fresh start. Just head on over to www.LEVY-KING.com or click the link below. Follow the prompts and answer a few simple questions, and we'll help you figure out your eligibility for a fresh start. That website again is www.LEVY-KING.com, or you can give us a call at 1-877-LEVY-KING. That's it for this week, guys. Talk to you later. Bye.
1-877-LEVY-KING, L-E-V-Y, Levy-King, 1-877-LEVY-KING, LEVY-KING.com.
Owe back taxes to the IRS? Call the Levy King. He's the best. 877-LEVY-KING, LEVY-KING.com.
1-877-LEVY-KING, LEVY-KING.com.